Welcome to another edition of We're Not Doing a Podcast alongside Mark Weber. I'm Jarrett Least. We have got a Memorial Day weekend version of the podcast for you. So a little quieter time in New York sports right now. You got baseball going on. The NBA's done for the local teams, hockey as well. But Mark, you're just coming from a softball game that was delaying this episode by a little bit. And you said a fight broke out at the game you were playing at. I don't know much what happened. Do you want to fill in the audience? I'll be the new to this as well. What happened in your softball game?
Well, I was starting to tell you, but you just responded, damn and oh my, without really asking any follow-up. I think most people, when they say, hey, I was just in a softball game where a fight broke out, that would constitute a little more of a follow-up than just damn and oh my.
You're not a fighter.
What happened was, in short, from what I think I can say, because there was police activity on the scene in Central Park, a bunch of teenagers thought it'd be funny to ride their bikes in the field. If I was that age, I would have probably thought it was hilarious as well. A brilliant person that I was playing softball with thought it'd be funny to push them off the bicycle as a joke. The teenager got off the bicycle. Fists were thrown. Fists continued to be thrown. Police were called. What did I do? I stood in the outfield like the kid, just picking grass, watching the whole thing, just in pure disbelief. Only in New York, Jarrett. Only in New York. That's why you're here and not in the Hamptons right now.
I was just about to say only softball in New York City. And for the audience who thinks I'm a heartless prick, trust me, Mark, you are always in my heart. But I know you are not the type that is going to actually throw fists and start a fight. So definitely an interesting night for you. Now let's transition to a team that
who needs pay-per-view.
Well, now it's very true, really. But let's transition from a fight to a team that always gets me going. That's not showing a lot of fight at this particular moment in time, and that's the New York Mets. Through the team's first 50 games, they are a very underwhelming 25-25, really just not meeting expectations. And I think one of the biggest reasons why this team is falling short of expectations is because there is so much dead weight on this roster right now with a guy like Tommy Pham, Daniel Vogelbach, Mark Canha. Eduardo Escobar has been decent in his bench role, but it just seems like the Mets need to make a transition to a youth movement. And the Mets are very hesitant on doing so. Mark, do you agree with me that it is time to let all the kids come up and play every day for the New York Mets?
I think so to an extent, but I don't think it's that bad for the Mets because you have Max Scherzer that's been playing better. Justin Verlander is back and looking kind of like Justin Verlander. You have Francisco Alvarez playing as one of the best catchers in baseball, so it would be more of a concern if he was sent down to the minors, which is something that was reported here and there. But after the weekend that the Mets had recently, I don't know if they're in as much trouble as everyone's saying they are. I get people are frustrated with Daniel Vogelbach. I get people are frustrated that Mark Vientos isn't in the lineup as much as he should. But I don't think it's that bad. I think it can only get better. You have guys that could be coming back from injuries pretty soon. It's not as bad as it seems to the Mets. They're still in the wild card hunt. They could still make a run for the division. I'm the most negative person when it comes to the Mets, probably more negative than you.
You're happy when it's negative.
Yeah, it's fun. But I think there's a lot of room for growth with the New York Mets this year.
The only reason I push back on that right now, it's just the team just looks so lifeless and so lack of energy. And a team that I'll kind of compare this to, go back to earlier in the year with the New York Knicks. They were off to a rough start. They started 10-13. They just looked very dull and boring. And the Knicks decided to make a change. They inserted guys like Deuce McBride into the rotation, and they just changed things up. And that really catapulted the Knicks season. I think that's what has to happen with the Mets right now. Daniel Vogelbach just has to go. it's getting to the point now where he is almost a symbol of all the wrong that is with the New York Mets right now. And shout out to Frank the Tank of Barstool Sports. When Frank the Tank is calling someone a fat piece of shit, we got problems. Daniel Vogelback just has to go. And look, I think what this Mets team needs to do is have Mark Vientos as the everyday DH, call up Ronnie Mauricio, make him the everyday second baseman, put Jeff McNeil in left field, and what they've been doing with Brett Beatty at third base, and of course, Francisco Alvarez at catcher. The notion of Alvarez possibly being sent down, I think is just absolute nonsense. If that were to happen, I would lose my absolute mind. But would you agree with me to an extent that those four kids should get playing time when Mauricio does eventually get called up?
My question is, do you want Ronnie Mauricio called up, or do you want to trade him? Because if the Mets have this unlimited money and unlimited budget, like fans repeat every day when it comes to Steve Cohen, maybe you trade Mauricio for an extra bat. Maybe you find an extra outfielder to replace a Marcana, replace Starling Marte, maybe reduce Starling Marte's role in the lineup to a pinch hitter. I don't see really the Mets valuing their prospects as much as they should. Alvarez, statistically, is off to the best start for a catcher 21 or younger since Joe Mauer. And Joe Mauer is in the debate for the Hall of Fame, and it's not an if he's going to the Hall of Fame, it's when. And that's who Alvarez is playing like. And when you have that mindset that maybe he should be going to the minor leagues when his competitors are Tomas Nido, Omar Narvaez, Gary Sanchez,
DFA.
That's concerning. That to me is concerning. And it just seems like this team does not know what it's doing with its younger players. And that's where a team like the Red Sox for years really excelled. They always seemed to bring up their young guys at the right time. They always had a great mix of their veterans. And that's the difference between the great teams that have a lot of money and the New York Mets. That to me is more concerning because with the Mets, you have Jose Quintana who could come back into the rotation. As I mentioned, Scherzer and Verlander. If they're just 75% of the players that they were, that would be fantastic for the Mets. So it could get better just in terms of the talent they do have, but it's utilizing their prospects on and off the field, whether it's trading Ronnie Mauricio or making sure Francisco Alvarez is seriously that number one catcher. That is probably more concerning for not just the way the Mets are this year, but how they're going to look for the next couple of years as well.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to the Mets not utilizing their prospects properly. You made a great point because when you call these guys up, they don't play. And they're not going to be able to build confidence. So it's just not a great situation right now with this Mets team because they need to go full youth movement, in my opinion, to just inject some youthful energy into this team. But it remains to be seen what this team will look like at a benchmark where we think we can really start evaluating this team, which is Memorial Day this coming Monday. Now, transitioning to a team that always gets you fired up, and that's the New York Yankees, who they've been playing some very good baseball over the past couple of weeks. I don't think there's any concerns that the Yankees are going to miss the playoffs, win the division. That may be another story, but the Yankees are a solidified playoff team in the American League. But owner Hal Steinbrenner, he was quoted a couple of days ago on the show podcast with John Heyman and Joel Sherman that the season would not be considered a failure if the Yankees did not win a World Series championship. And with that, I would love to hear your response, Mark.
All right, so let me start off with this. There's certain things in life that when someone asks you the question, you don't really answer. If a woman asks you, do I look fat in this dress? Do you answer, Jared? The answer is no.
No.
Or you just compliment them. There was one answer and one answer only that Hal Steinbrenner could have gave. And that is, we want to win the championship every single year. He managed to screw that up. And he managed to say what we all knew he was thinking. and feared the most, that's what he's thinking. To Hal Steinbrenner, the championship comes once a year, and that's when his tax returns come in. That's when he sees how the balance sheet looks. That's when he sees what the profit margins are. To Hal Steinbrenner, that is winning a championship. Winning the World Series is not. And long gone are the days of George Steinbrenner, his father, and Derek Jeter, who considered every year they didn't win the World Series a failure. There's a reason why this team has not made the World Series since George Steinbrenner died. And it is because of Hal. It is solely because of Hal. The Yankees, as we know it, are finished. Hal Steinbrenner does not care about putting together a winning baseball team. Brian Cashman's just as yes man. Brian Cashman will probably be the GM until his hair is either completely gone or completely white. This is the problem of the Yankees. Hal Steinbrenner had one way to answer this question, and he managed to answer it the wrong way. It's pretty impossible.
Well, I think Brian Cashman's going to be the Yankee general manager until you and I are both dead. I've been saying that for so long when it comes to Brian Cashman. And you're right. It's just, I always just say, winning is great business. And yes, to an extent, the Yankees have one of the highest payrolls in Major League Baseball, but they don't go the extra mile to do whatever it takes to win. Just signing Carlos Rodon as your big offseason acquisition. I'm not counting Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge was retained. He was already on the team. So, look, the Yankees have a chance, but when it's the same thing every year with them, you know what the problems are with the Yankees come October.
Let me tell you, this is an example of just kind of where the Yankees mindset is when it comes to their players. Bryce Harper wanted to be a Yankee. He told everybody throughout the last couple of years that he wanted to be a Yankee, but they weren't interested. Who were they interested in committing to? Aaron Hicks. Stay the girl you had a crush on throughout elementary school, through high school, wants to date you. But you have the Aaron Hicks equivalent out there, and you're together with her. It may be fine. You may know what you're getting, but when you have the Bryce Harper, the megastar that has a major crush and is interested in you, you go for that. You go for your dreams on that one. And to not even ask Bryce Harper for a contract or some sort of deal, you just got to wonder what they're thinking of, Jared.
Well, I think when it goes all the way back to the Bryce Harper situation, they acquired Giancarlo Stanton the prior offseason before. So you just knew the Yankees were they going to go out and acquire Giancarlo Stanton one offseason and then Bryce Harper? The answer to that question was no. Now, Giancarlo Stanton, it's a whole different topic of conversation, whether they
got Stanton for free. Jeter was giving them a favor.
Exactly.
We all know it. That's the case.
Look, the issue with Stanton is he doesn't stay healthy, but when he is healthy, he produces the most important time of year. He's a clutch October performer for the Yankees. So Bryce Harper would have been amazing for them, but it's just they don't seem to be willing to go out and acquire that extra needed bat that is necessary to get over the hump come playoff time. And you have Carlos Rodon, hopefully he comes back. You pair him with Garrett Cole. It gives you a really good chance to win in October. But when you lose every year in the playoffs, seemingly going back to this era of Yankee baseball, starting in 2017, it's always the same problems with them. They don't hit enough in October. And who's to think that that's going to change this time around? Do you think it's going to change?
No, it's never going to change. I mean, Gleyber Torres is never going to be the star that they thought he'd be. Josh Donaldson is not the answer at third base. It was nice to get rid of Gary Sanchez, but in reality, when you got Josh Donaldson in return, it wasn't helping, and he had probably one of the worst postseasons ever in Yankees history. They've made some terrible moves. Yes, they have a high payroll, but they're not putting in the extra effort to get a megastar. Now, if they were in the conversation every year like the San Diego Padres for top players, okay, You give it your shot. It didn't work out. But to not step up to the plate and say, oh, we have a high payroll and we're going, you're going to lose interest. You're going to lose fans. Fans are going to stop caring. And I'm starting to feel bad for the people that I'm seeing complain about the Yankees on Twitter every single day, because you want to know how you really hurt Hal Steinbrenner? Stop watching the games. Stop going to the ballpark. That's how you make an impact as a fan. Complaining that they're not making signings on Twitter isn't going to do anything. That's how you hurt them. You continuously watching and continuously going to games and putting more money into his pocket so he could celebrate his profit margin. You're just enabling him. It's not helping.
And the other thing also when it comes to Hal is we just mentioned before how Brian Cashman is going to be the Yankee general manager for life. He should have been fired a long time ago because, look, ultimately, it is the general manager's job to draft and develop talent. And you always make fun of me, oh, with the Mets, Steve Cohen, money's not going to do everything for the Mets. But look, the Yankees, they just haven't developed great prospects over the past few years. Anthony Volpe looks really good, but is Anthony Volpe going to change everything for the New York Yankees?
Let's not say they don't know how to develop prospects. Aaron Judge was from the Yankees minor league system.
You need more, though.
Arguably the best player in baseball.
You need more.
Let's not say that Aaron Judge and the Yankees can't develop prospects. Gleyber Torres, Gary Sanchez, those guys were all-stars. Regardless of what you think of how they did in October, they are of value major league players. It's more of they're not making the extra signings and they're not making the extra push that they used to. I wouldn't say they're complete with bust when it comes to prospects, but for me, it's more of not going after the big ticket names when these guys definitely have an interest in being a New York Yankee and then saying, hey, we're trying. And that's the problem. It's coming from all sides. It's coming from ownership. It's coming from the front office, and it's coming down to the fans.
It's definitely an issue that seems to be a recycled theme with the New York Yankees on a yearly basis. Brian Cashman, Hal Steinbrenner, everyone's angry when it comes to the New York Yankees and how they'll do in October. Now, moving on to a guy that both Mark and we absolutely love, and that is Carmelo Anthony, former Syracuse basketball player, former Knick, one of our favorites, decided to call it a career after 19 seasons in the NBA. And the debate has circulated over the past few days. Should the New York Knicks retire Carmelo Anthony's number 7? It's a very interesting topic of conversation. So I'll ask you, Mark, should the Knicks retire Melo's number 7?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There shouldn't be a debate. Everyone keeps saying Carmelo is a loser. He doesn't deserve to get his number retired. He doesn't deserve to be up there with Walt Frazier. How many rings did Patrick Ewing win? 0. How many rings did Carmelo Anthony win? 0. Carmelo Anthony is the best player to put on the Knicks uniform since Patrick Ewing. He is also the only superstar to choose the Knicks and play well for the Knicks. Amari Stoudemire, a few months before Carmelo Anthony joined the Knicks, played for them, but got hurt and really was only good for one season. Carmelo Anthony made a bunch of all-star teams with the Knicks. He got named one of among the most all-star selections of all time in Knicks history. Absolutely. And if you're going to say you can't retire Carmelo without Bernard King, retire both their numbers. It's as simple as that. Retire Carmelo Anthony's number. He's the best Knick you've had since Patrick Ewing. Get the fans happy. People love him. And if you don't think that Carmelo Anthony deserves to get his number retired, take a look at the numbers. And then if you still don't think that, you're an idiot. I'm sorry. It's the truth.
You actually just stole the words right out of my mouth when it goes to Bernard King, because I agree. The Knicks should retire Carmelo Anthony's number, but you also got to retire number 30, Bernard King, because look, our era of Knicks basketball is highlighted by Carmelo Anthony. And you do have to show some love for Knicks fans who love that team in the 80s. Bernard King's a very similar player. He won a scoring title with the Knicks. He didn't win much, just like Carmelo Anthony, but I think there needs to be a dedicated day, separately, of course, for Carmelo Anthony and Bernard King. You retire both those numbers. Julius Randle, if he's still on the team, who knows? Another topic for another day. He'll have to pick another number. But the reason why I would say yes to retiring Carmelo Anthony's number has a lot more to do with not necessarily just his impact on the New York Knicks, just day to day on the court. It's everything he stood for. Like you said, Mark, he wanted to come to the Knicks. And us as Knicks fans,
and he came to the Knicks twice. Everyone forgets that when he was a free agent and he could have went anywhere. He came back to the Knicks and they had Phil Jackson running the show.
Exactly. And going back to the summer of 2010, the summer of LeBron, so many Knicks fans, we hyped ourselves up for false hope, myself included. I always go stargazing, and it was the wrong thing to do. But look, Carmelo Anthony wanted to be a New York Knick. And that says something. And he's one of the greatest scorers of all time. And the team you associate Carmelo Anthony with the most, in my opinion, really is the New York Knicks, more so than the Denver Nuggets. So Carmelo Anthony's number. Yes.
I think that's the bigger debate than whether he should get his number retired. What he's more known as a Denver Nugget or a New York Knick. I honestly think that's a bigger debate because I'm kind of torn between that one. I think he absolutely should get his number retired, but the Denver versus New York is a real tough one.
Not an Atlanta Hawk. He never played a game for the Hawks.
No, but there is a jersey that exists. People do have it. I do love that the Portland Trailblazers had a little memoriam to his career in the NBA, showing Portland Trailblazer highlights. I personally forgot that he played 2 years for the Portland Trailblazers. Just incredible. The Lakers did something too. I love when these guys play for random teams and at the end of their careers and get a highlight reel. It's great. I mean, Carmelo Anthony did play a lot of games for the Portland Trailblazers, played 2 seasons with them, did play a lot of seasons, but it's like with the Yankees with Ivan Rodriguez when he made the Hall of Fame in 2017, they had a whole highlight reel to his career with the Yankees, and it was just a couple of games. It's always funny. The Marlins did it with Mike Piazza, but with Carmelo, he's really been around, and the guy lives in New York long-term. His kid's going to Lehigh in Brookville. Shout out Brookville, New York. So he's a New York guy. He might have lived here for just a short amount of time before going to Syracuse, but he really is a New York guy.
Mark, you forgot about the team that the Knicks traded Carmelo to. You mentioned the Trailblazers, the Hawks, the Lakers. We all forget the Knicks traded Carmelo Anthony to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Remember that? Remember that big three of was Paul George, Carmelo, and Russell Westbrook?
And you remember Enes Kanter. I mean, Enes Kanter had a fantastic Knicks career. People forget that. Don't retire his number. But that was pretty crazy. And that was the summer of Melo in a different sense, 2017, where everybody was asking where Melo was going to go and ended up in Oklahoma City. It worked out for the Knicks, and Melo got a few extra legs to his career. But I do think he's got to get his number retired for the Knicks. And I think that people who don't feel that way should take a look at Patrick Ewing's career and really think about what the differences are, because of players to play 400 games for the Knicks, Melo and Patrick Ewing 1 and 2 in points per game. Fun fact.
And also retire his number because at the end of his Knicks career, he had to deal with Phil Jackson as the team's president.
His second best player was J.R. Smith during the best season of his Knicks career. The poor guy. And they still got the 2 seed in the playoffs.
Phil Jackson taking a nap would have been a better Knicks president than Phil Jackson being awake. That was just an absolute disaster. So,
but real quick, Jarrett, who do you think should get their number retired next in New York sports? Because there's one that is extremely, extremely obvious, and it's painful that his number is not retired yet. And it's someone that you love very dearly.
Give me a hint on the sport.
I will say it is a team that we talked about in this show already.
You said I love them, so it's the Mets.
Mm-hmm. Whose number's not retired.
Our era or
Yep, your error.
David Wright?
Yep.
That's going to come in a few years. I'm not worried. That's going to happen.
Should have been already. Should have been done in
It'll
his last game of his career.
it'll well, that was he retired at the end of the Wilpon era, so that was you got to wait for Steve Cohen to take over to retire all the numbers. So David Wright's number will get retired, but another number that I was contemplating that should possibly get retired. Do you think CC Sabathia's 52 should be retired by the Yankees?
Yeah, of course. He won probably the last World Series the Yankees will ever win and was the key reason why. I think absolutely. But I think with CC, if it hasn't happened already, he'll probably be in the Hall of Fame first try, second try. So I think the Yankees will want to have it coincide with the year that he gets inducted into Cooperstown.
And you also forget CC Sabathia. He played for the Yankees for a decade. It feels like it was short for him because you always remember CC Sabathia playing for the Cleveland Indians and that great postseason run with the Milwaukee Brewers. But CC Sabathia won a World Series title with the Yankees. He played for them for a decade. And I remember on the last show, Mark, you said number 13, Alex Rodriguez.
I still stand by that. I still think they should retire A-Rod's number. I know Joey Gallo is the only player to wear 13 since, which is a humongous insult to a guy that won 2 MVP awards for the New York Yankees, 2005 and 2007. I do think A-Rod should be retired as well. He won't be having a Cooperstown farewell like CC Sabathia probably will. So I don't know when that will happen. I think A-Rod is going to be extremely old by the time he gets his number retired by the Yankees. It'll be like a Jerry Koosman type situation like they had, like the Mets had a few years ago. So I think that's what we'll have with A-Rod. But CC will probably happen when he makes the Hall of Fame. I don't know if it will be the first ballot, but he will be in within the first 5 years of his induction. A reminder, it will happen eventually since he just retired in 2019.
Jersey retirement number debates. Always something that we could talk about for days, hours, and weeks. It's a topic that I always love to discuss. Now,
I've never discussed it with you. I think that's the first time I've ever discussed this with you.
Well, it's a good one to talk about. So now moving on to our favorite segment of the show, with it or not with it. Now, I'm sure for those who have heard, Taylor Swift, she's in town this weekend. She's got a concert, a couple nights at MetLife Stadium. Now, ticket prices for these concerts are going for as low as $2,000. Mark, spending $2,000 to go to a Taylor Swift concert, with it or not with it?
I'm going to go with a really hot take here, and I'm going to say not with it. Because, tell me this, Jared, if you told your family that you were spending $2,000 to go to the middle of the country to watch your hero perform, your family would think you were joining a cult. There are people going to Chicago, to Boston, to Nashville, to everywhere in the country just to see Taylor Swift perform. And also, I don't get it. She's fine. I'm not saying this to be a contrarian. I really don't see the hype. Beyonce, Jennifer Lopez, Shakira, those are acts I travel. The only act I've ever traveled for is Paul McCartney. Is Taylor Swift on that realm as Paul McCartney? Of course not. I'm not a T-Swift fan. I never got the hype. I probably can't even name 3 songs off the top of my head. I don't get it. I don't know what you think. Maybe you're a secret Swiftie. You apparently love Jersey retirement numbers, which now I'm going to bore you to death with that one after this podcast. I don't get it with Taylor Swift. I genuinely do not understand the hype.
I like Taylor Swift's music. I can name a couple songs: Anti-Hero, 22, Welcome to New York, You Belong With Me. I like her music.
You Belong With Me is a great one. That I'll give her.
But what you said is spot on. You would think that when Taylor Swift is performing, people react like the fucking Pope is coming to town. It's just mind-blowing to me. Like people, they get dressed up like cultists. It's insane. So to answer the question, it's not with it. I'm not spending $2,000 on Memorial Day weekend to go see Taylor Swift at MetLife Stadium, that big air conditioning unit. Absolutely not.
I have a follow-up question for you.
Sure.
Do Swifties look at sports fans like we look at Swifties?
No, because Swifties look at sports fans like us like we need to be put in a mental institution.
But
And
yeah, it sounds like you're saying the same thing with the Swifties.
No. I mean, if we're saying they're in a cult, does that mean they belong in a mental institution? I don't know. But I mean, the way we react to sports games is far more intense and extreme than the way Swifties
People are
react.
passing out from the sight of her, Jared.
Yeah, but it's excitement though. Like when the Mets drop a pop-up in 2009, when Luis Castillo drops that pop-up, I thought I was going to die. Like I thought I was going to have like a stroke the night before I took the ACT. I literally thought I wasn't going to make it the next morning to take an exam. I don't think Swifties have that sort of reaction. Maybe. I mean, maybe they'll just melt to death. I don't know. But it is crazy to me. It just, people treat Taylor Swift like she is literally God coming to town. And it just absolutely boggles my mind. So I'm glad that you and I were both on the same page, spending $2,000 to go see Taylor Swift.
We're $2,000 richer by not spending it on Taylor Swift tickets.
You could spend it on so many other ways. And
Legend seats for the Yankees, even though probably should not give that money to Hal Steinbrenner, but that's probably more worth it in my opinion. But for the one-time experience, as long as they're not doing it all the time.
Exactly. And I am the last person on telling anyone how to spend their money, but $2,000 to go see Taylor Swift, not with it. Listen to her songs on repeat on Spotify all weekend, maybe on a beach. You'll have a better time.
Didn't she remove her songs off Spotify though? Remember that was a thing because in protest of not paying artists fairly?
Maybe. You would probably know the answer to that question better than me. I should check that out. I actually know. I was on a jog the other day and I was listening to Antihero. So
he's a secret Swiftie.
Not a secret
He's
Swiftie.
A secret Swiftie.
Not a secret Swiftie. Like her music, not a Swiftie. Not dressing up in Taylor Swift gear, but her music's pretty good. But spend your money.
I'm not judging. We can wear whatever you want to wear, Jared. I'm not going to judge.
Aaron Rodgers is a Swiftie. Aaron Rodgers is a big Swiftie. He was interviewed this week by the Jets Twitter account. He loves Taylor Swift. So, hey, whatever Aaron Rodgers loves, I guess I love too, but not a Swiftie. But spend your money elsewhere, people. That's going to do it for this edition of We're Not Doing a Podcast. For Mark Weber, this is Jared Lee signing off. We'll see you next time. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend.